Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order. Dr. Russel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This question was originally set down for the Minister of Finance, and I seek leave for it to be put back to the Minister of Finance.
Leave is so sought. Is there any objection? There is.
Thank you,
Question
Mr.
number
Speaker.
6, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he stand by the Minister of Finance's statement, and I quote, "Well, we've got climate change policy built around the emissions trading system, which has bipartisan support"?
Honourable Tim Grosser.
Yes.
Supplementary.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he accept the scientific consensus that human-induced climate change is real, or does he share the view of the Finance Minister that, quote, "Well, it only may well be"?
Honourable Tim Grosser.
We accept that the science points to risks, but we also understand that there are major questions around the numerics, around the extent of climate change, and around a number of other factors that feed into this equation.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, do those uncertainties around the numerics justify the government weakening the ETS so that it no longer has any effect?
Honourable Tim Grosser.
No, we are not weakening the ETS. We're maintaining the ETS on its current settings.
Supplementary.
Dr. Russell Norman, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he agree with the latest OECD economic survey of New Zealand, came out a couple of days ago, you might remember it, which recommends strengthening price signals in the emissions trading system? Or does he think, as John Key seems to think, that the ETS is a far-left idea?
Honourable Tim Grosser.
Well, once again, the member is partially quoting from the OECD survey. What I recall quite clearly, though I don't have it in front of me, was a very clear statement that says the New Zealand ETS is the most advanced scheme of its type in the world.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Does he agree with the OECD in its recent country report about New Zealand that, and I quote, "encouraging investment in greenhouse gas mitigation technologies and transport infrastructure will require stronger price signals from the emissions trading scheme," end of quote? Or does he think that a stronger emissions trading scheme is some kind of far-left idea, as John Key seems to think?
Well, quite clearly that a stronger international price would drive an adjustment in a faster direction, but the underlying policy is that we're aligning ourselves with world prices. At the same time, our proportion of renewable energy is going rapidly towards the 90% target.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Doesn't this OECD report demonstrate, once again, that the international economic mainstream is actually much closer to the Green Party policy of a stronger carbon price rather than the National Party policy of completely gutting the emissions trading scheme, which is an extremist policy by international standards?
Honourable Tim Grosser.
No, I don't accept that at all. It's a selective reading, once again, of the assessment.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. How can the Minister continue to argue that New Zealand is being responsible and mainstream on climate change policy when New Zealand is the 5th worst country in the OECD for total greenhouse gas emissions on a per capita basis? Aren't we at the extremes of the OECD on climate change policy?
Honourable Tim Grosser.
The member knows perfectly well why New Zealand is in that position on a per capita basis, but the reality is that since 48% of the emissions come from agriculture, that we are the most carbon efficient major agricultural country in the world. And if we were to reduce our emissions by killing agriculture, as the member consistently advocates, we would actually worsen climate change internationally.
Question number 7, David Bennett.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Transport. What are some of the benefits